Yo, what it is, YouTube? It's Playback coming back with another bullseye of a video here today on the channel. Let's talk about some of the top vocal EQs to be using in 2025. So, what is y'all favorite vocal EQ that y'all like to use? I think EQ is a very great thing for not only adding, a cleanness to a vocal, but also adding some sauce and flavoring and seasoning, sometimes you got to think a little bit through what type of EQ you want to use to get that best sound. So we're going to be doing a tiers list. If y'all like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. Check the links, check the website to book us for a studio session or book us for a mix. So let's get to this right now. Okay, so here we got our tiers list, all right? The first one's going to be the mix and master tier. This is going to be the best of the best, okay? Pretty much the greatest EQs that you can get your hands on that are going to usually end up on the final mix and master tier. After that, we're going to have rough mix. Okay, so with rough mix is stuff that's good enough to be on the demo. You have vocal template, the plugins that are good enough to consistently make the template. All right, they're good, they're like a launch pad, you're ready to work with them. Then we have debatable, stuff you might not use too much and delete. I think for the most part, most of these EQs are gonna make it because I only picked the best ones. All right, so what's y'all favorite EQ? Let me know down below what y'all like to use it for. Okay, first one I'm gonna put is a surfer EQ. All right, so I know auto tune also has an EQ like this, but EQs like this are great because they chase down a note. They're kind of like like a dog, a pit bull, American bully. Told him go after that bone, boy. That's what this EQ is. Using a surfer EQ, you can specifically target a musical note, right? So let's say if it's like E flat minor or something like that, or octave up, or octave down, G sharp or something like that. You can use a surfer EQ to target bad frequencies. This is really good for vocals where certain people kind of have like a certain thing inside their voice, and you might want to chase down that bad frequency like an assassin, like Assassin's Creed. You feel me? You want to go after him, okay? And you want to hunt and exterminate that bad frequency. So it's also good too because you could also use it to boost a certain frequency, okay? Maybe there's a certain frequency on an 808, like the fundamental, the neckline that you want to boost continuously, but that note is not always constantly playing, so the surfer will chase it and boost it all around the place. All right, so that's why I think I will put it in rough mix. All right, next plugin right here is gonna definitely have to be the EQP1A. The EQP1A is timeless, and the reason why it works great on vocals is because you already know it's gonna give us some beef. Okay, whenever I use the analog modeled type of EQ, the first thing that I do is I don't even touch the actual EQ stuff, is I listen to the tone, okay? Because there's also some components, there's also some spice, some sugar and spice and everything nice baked under the bread, you feel me? Type shit like that, okay? So yeah, the tube saturation instantly gives a lot of girth, but the actual low shelf and the high end is very good because you can get a nice crystal high end with that plugin without actually, obtaining much harshness because it's using a shelf with a very musical curve. Fab filter that constantly ends up in the mix and master tier because of the many EQ shapes that you can get with it. It's important for you guys to understand EQ shapes. What is a low shelf? What is a bell? What is a high shelf? What is a tilt filter? When to use that stuff, when to use dynamic EQ, so that's important. It's like you trying to play this PS5 game, but you don't have the manual. All right, so the manual comes through your education, listening to songs and stuff like that, and hearing how stuff is supposed to be shaped musically, like Play-Doh, you feel me? How you want to shape that bit. All right. So that's why Fab Filter is gonna go up there. And the new Fab Filter is even better because they got like some colored things in it, and you can see clashing frequencies and like a soothe type of thing. So yeah, that's gotta go mix and master tier. Do you guys have the new Fab Filter? Let me know down below. Bax EQ. I think Bax EQ is really dope, but it has specific uses. I usually like to use it on the drum bus or the master fader itself. So it's not something that you would constantly use for vocals, but it's good to know the Baxendal EQ because that was kind of like one of those first EQs, the Baxendal EQ. It's like one of the primitive EQs. So it has a very classic sound. And for me, I think that's why it sounds good on drums because it has a certain mid-range point to it. All right. That makes it sound really good. After that, we're going to have the SSL EQs. So specifically with the SSL, it's like the channel strip, the SSL E or G. I constantly find myself using that in my vocal templates. What you guys like to use better? You like to use the SSL E or the G channel or the J or the K? So yeah, that's why it's in vocal template because you never just get to pick one SSL and fall on it. there's different SSLs. You might like the K version better, the J, the 9000. So I would always recommend you guys to try out different types of SSL, and that's why it's gonna fall in vocal template because it's not a one size fit all type of Nike slide. Okay. After that, we got the API. API is definitely gonna go up to mix and master tier, and this is applying to the 560, the Vision Strip, the 550. I just like how the API sounds very modern. All right, it was made in the 1990s, so it sounds very modern, but it also has a great way of bringing out presence because it's got the 2520 op amp. All right, so understanding the components, understanding that okay, this banana bread already has bananas baked into it. Even though I can't see the banana on the banana bread, it's already baked into it. That's what you got to understand about all of these analog modeled EQs. Is the some flavor is already baked into that bit. You feel me? All right, then the Neve stuff. It would be blasphemous to put the Neve stuff, you know, low. So Neve 1073 and the Neve 1084, those are very musical. I love the way the transformer and transistor reminds me of like that peanut butter and jelly. You feel me? It's the perfect amount of thickness and sweetness as well. So that's why that's got to go in the mix and master tier, and it can work on many things like vocals, background vocals, and the 12K push is great when you want a little bit of like that's why there's a difference between mag EQ in the top end. Like all of these EQs have a different top end because they have different shapes. And I usually go with the 1073 12K when I want that little crunchy, kind of like that fried chicken type of high end where it's bright but it's kind of crunchy a little bit because the 73 has a transistor in that bit. You feel me? So yeah, the Mag EQ is gonna go on rough mix. I mostly use it for the airband, but the thing about the Mag EQ is sometimes you don't always need to use an airband. Sometimes you can use a saturator. Sometimes you can use a bright tape formula. So there's different ways of obtaining a crystally bright sound, even maybe the microphone you use or maybe your voice already has it without having to always use that EQ. So I think it's slightly overrated. Debatable. I gotta put it on the Manny EQ. I think the Manny EQ is cool and all, but it's supposed to be like a Frankenstein of multiple EQs, so it don't end up really sounding like anything. You feel me? It's supposed to be a little bit of Mag EQ, a little bit of Neve 1073, a little bit of Avalon, but in the process, it don't specialize in nothing. That's why I put it in debatable and rough mix. We're gonna go with the Soma. A lot of people like to use that on their master bus, but I think it's a great plugin also for lead vocals. You feel me? The SPL Pass EQ is another one like that too, where it kind of like lets you get those fine notches. You can do subtle moves like a half a dB here on your vocal to like really. I kind of see it like when you go to the dentist and he just kind of slightly rearranging your teeth. Maybe your teeth like braces. Sometimes people only get braces to slightly adjust their teeth 5%, even though they don't really need the shit, but just to slightly tighten everything up. That's kind of like where I would feel like something like an EQ like that would come through and be really good. So what is y'all favorite vocal EQ that y'all like to use? There's other plugins that I could have brought up, but I didn't want the video to be too long. But some more recommendations is like the Avalon EQ plugin. I think that's really good. UAD or Kazrog. API Vision Strip, the Manly. I like to use the Manly on the vocals too. It actually sounds really good. So what's y'all favorite EQ? Let me down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And check our links, check out the studio, check out our Instagram, hit us up. Appreciate y'all now, YouTube gang. Peace.